We're 1/10 of 1% in global emissions. That's 1/10 of 1%. But globally, how much are we importing from places that are actually 30 and 40% the problems with emissions? They don't take that into account when they're importing the food in here. Eamon Ryan has admitted that 87% of the roll-on and roll-off transport and flights coming in and out of this country come through Dublin. Yet there's thousands of vehicles parked in Dublin Airport at excessive charges, and they're after travelling from Limerick, Cork, everywhere to get cheap flights out of Dublin. And he now realised, yes, he said, it needs dispersion of traffic, because if we stop the people travelling up the country, that means we're saving on emissions. That's common sense. Also, the port, 90% of the traffic coming into this country with all the food comes through Dublin Port. Yep, we have Rosslare, we have Fines, we have Cork.
So it's a matter of regional balance then?
Regional balance is the only way forward. It lowers our emissions, it gives employment, and also it gives the people that are actually living in Dublin a chance for their children and their grandchildren to be able to live where they grew up, where they were born. At the moment, they've priced their own out of the market, and now people from Dublin are contacting myself and my colleagues to say, we've no place for our children to live. Everyone should be entitled to come back to where they were born and be given the opportunity to live there. All the infrastructure has been pushed into Dublin, but they've forgotten now that Dublin now is overpopulated. They don't have the water supply now for Dublin, so now they want to pipe it from the Shannon up to Dublin because of the lack of supply in Dublin, rather than send it down the country. And Eamon Ryan's reply to the flights was, we tried to bring the personnel from Shannon up to Dublin to help, rather than sending the flights down to Dublin. It's an hour and a half down the road in a bus to Shannon. 20 minutes through and you're on a plane. You come to Dublin, travel 3 or 4 hours to Dublin. You sit in a queue for another 4 hours. Doesn't make sense. So the cheapest way to fly at the moment is through Shannon. The cheapest parking charges are in Shannon. And we save the environment by not travelling as far to Dublin. That's what that's common sense, like. But it looks like we don't have a government with common sense. And everything I have said for the last 12 months, or more since I've been elected, everything now is coming through. I could foresee the fuel crisis. That's why I brought a truck into this, to foresee what it means for the country to run at the moment. We are completely reliant. And I've said to you there earlier about how many cars in this car park at the moment are electric. There's none. There's none here electric at the moment. The Taoiseach is driving around in a fossil fuel car, being travelled around the country. The Garda cars around this country are on fossil fuel. All the departments are travelling on fossil fuel. But yet, Eamon Ryan says it's okay, let's all go electric and bicycles. Again, he hasn't come back to my invitation. Third time I've asked him now, come to Limerick. If he doesn't want to bring the bicycle down, I'll give him a bicycle. I'll put him, he's got to do my job for 1 week on a bicycle. I guarantee you he'll have a change of mind when he comes out there. But he's got to do my job in my county for 1 week. That will change his mind.
So, speaking about energy independence, you have obviously been in the private sector for most of your life, and one of the most fundamental rules of economics is that the price of something is set by the supply and demand in the market, and that you can set the price to whatever you want on paper, but that doesn't make more of it. Do you think that politicians in Ireland generally understand that?
No, 100% they don't. And on many occasions, and on the last occasion, when the last truck protest was here, I was on the local radio on 95 FM, and I was on with Ginil Devlin, was the reporter, and Niall Collins, Minister, and they told me that I didn't know what I was talking about on the day, to say that they were discussing energy. What they were discussing on the energy was ESB and gas. But 78% of the people in my constituency are on fossil fuel or solid fuel. And the Minister, Niall Collins, didn't even know that, even though he's representing the same area I'm representing. So I do understand business. I also understand when they brought in a retrofit programme, that the insulation is oil-based, so you need oil. Now we have companies telling us they're increasing the cost of insulation again by 25%. Now that means that across the board, building prices go up. The cost of making blocks is done by fossil fuel. The cost of bringing your sand to your job, your supplies, your men and women that are working on the job are all done by fossil fuels. So if fossil fuel goes up, everything goes up. The food in your shops, even if you go for the cup of coffee, everything is going up because, as I've said at the very, very start, Our prices in this country are all based on fossil fuels. At the moment, the government have actually cut off everything, but there's no alternatives. There is no way that people can afford alternatives.
Speaking of alternatives, Ireland historically was always known for having a great culture of invention. You know, many of the greatest inventions, the hypodermic syringe, the modern stethoscope, the submarine, were all invented by Irish scientists. Do you think the government should be emphasising alternative solutions that haven't even been conceived of yet and investing more in research and development and that type of thing?
100%. And the biggest thing that we need to invest in this country is that we're sustainable ourselves. So invest in the farming, invest in our industries, that we're sustainable in this country. We've seen at the moment that with the problems with Ukraine and the Russian war, and now UK, that we can't function in this country because we are now held to ransom because we've no alternatives. Our food producers in this country have been priced out of the market from cheap imports from European countries that have easier way onto the markets, and it's a cheaper way of farming food. Ireland has always been known for the best quality of food in the country. We have grass growing milk, we have beef, all that sector. It is in this country naturally. It's not forced grown, but we're importing goods from European countries. Eamon Ryan, I do believe, he's actually starting to believe himself at this stage, because he's like Walter Mitty. He told us 6 or 8 months ago that he was getting rid of the 1 cent Nora charge. And yesterday he did a press release to say, no, I'm not. And people said to me then, when I said to him that he came to Limerick recently, that he told some of the councillors he came on the train, he told others that he came down the car. But again, he doesn't seem to believe himself. And look at any of his things, like he said yesterday, that if people are in trouble, let's go to the social welfare officer and they'll sort out all your problems. Nobody in this country that's working qualifies for anything from a social welfare office. It's the middle working class people in this country are the squeezed. We pay for everything. We don't qualify for any subsidies. So that comment alone just tells you that he's completely out of touch with reality.